Alright, next up is the Automoblox Tire, and a lot of you have had trouble with this one mostly because the mid-plane extrusion that they ask you to do. So I'll show that and point that out when we get to it. The first thing to note is it says extrude the wheel 0.75 inches. So if you don't read that, some of you aren't even sure where to extrude it to. So the first thing it just tells you the extrusion depth. Then step 2 says talks about sharing a sketch. So I'm just going to get right down to this sketch here. This shows both the wheel itself, which is the 1.65, and a thickness of 0.1 here. So let's get started in Autodesk. So the first thing is a sketch of the 1.65 circle, and we'll go 1.65. And next circle we need to look at, and again notice the 1.65 here is kind of zoomed in. Now that is a diameter 1.65, so if you look at, you need to subtract 0.1 from this radius and 0.1 from the other radius. So that actually you need to subtract 0.2 of an inch, or make it 1.45 diameter. So this next circle, same center, 0.2 of an inch smaller is 1.45. From there, I'm just going to go ahead and just finish my sketch right off. Extrude, and we're extruding the wheel. Now here's that midplane I was talking about. We've been working with direction 1 and direction 2, but when they say midplane, they also call it symmetric. So if you hover over them, if you're ever not sure of what a command is called, you can just hover over it. So midplane, what it does is it takes that same 1 inch, or in our case, I'll change that to 0.75. It takes the same distance, 0.75, but it splits it, and half of it goes direction 1, half goes direction 2. And the reason we're doing that, once I hit OK, is if you look a little bit further down here, these ribs in the middle, the support ribs in the middle, notice that they start in the middle, but they don't go all the way to the outside edge. So instead of extruding from the outside face all the way across, and then having to come in from one side and cut off a little bit, and then flip it around and cut off a little bit on the other side, what you can do with one mid-plane extrusion is set the size and then have it extrude from the middle outward. So we have our wheel, we've extruded it out, our 0.75, and now we're actually going to sketch what it looks like to put that little rib support in here. So what they give you for dimensions is that we've got 0.03 radius, so again we have to double that for our diameter. So we're going to make a new sketch that is twice that, 0.03 smaller than this inside part of the wheel. So we're going to do a new sketch, and actually one thing I just forgot to mention was we can't sketch on this face of the wheel nor the back face. We want to sketch right in the middle so that we can get that rib support to be started right in the middle. So since there's no plane there to click on, we have to go back to the origin, and over here in the origin, if you hit the plus sign, you can actually see the original planes, those orange planes when you start a sketch. So what I can do is I can find the one I'm looking for, which is our XY plane, and just real quickly I want to point out, notice that those lines, the XY plane, is right through the middle of the wheel just like we want. So on that, I'm going to go ahead and sketch that circle. It's going to start in the middle, and we know it was 1.45 is the diameter of this circle, but we need to go, we're going to subtract off 0.06. Now the reason for the 0.06, not 0.03 again, is because that wall thickness, 0.03, is applied to this radius and this radius. So we need to come back, and we have our ring. I'm also going to project the geometry of the inside of the wheel. And the reason I do that is we need to enclose this little area right here, this little rectangle looking shape right here. So the bottom is the circle we just created, the top is the existing wheel, and then here's how you get this 4 degrees off of left and 4 degrees off of right. Come up with a line command, start in the middle, but notice if I extend my line out, I I'm currently changing the distance of my line. But watch if I hit tab, see how it changed it, and I'm now editing the angle. So if I go top dead center vertical, that's 90. So if we go 4 degrees to the right, we're subtracting off 4. So I'm going to edit that to be 86 degrees. And I have my line. Now again, I can always come back and trim the excess line. So I'm going to go back to the center. I'm going to come off left of center, I'm going to hit tab. Now this time we have to add 4. So we got 94 degrees. Not a backspace, 94. So you're starting to hopefully see this little rectangular piece, which is what we want right there. So we need to go back. The last thing we need to do is trim. So I'm going to use the trim command. And the trim, you just select the part of the line you don't want. So I'm going to trim that piece. I'm going to trim that. I'm also going to trim the circle. I want to trim anything that I don't need because the computer tends to get confused if I don't. So all I have left is object lines for that little rectangle. I'm going to hit finish and extrude. And this is where some students are having trouble, is getting to selecting just this rectangular piece. So I strongly recommend you trim all the lines except the one that I was just showing you. So when I get over here, I've got it selected. And again, we need to make sure that we're at midplane. Notice that it's only going one direction. That's not really helpful. So we go midplane, and we also don't want 0.75 because that defeats the purpose of the midplane. We're going to make it 0.6. And that brings it in just enough to show that it's not the same distance as the wheel. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to come down here and show from this angle. You can see that one support rib. Next thing they have you do is scroll down. We did our mid-plane symmetric. We drew it out. We extruded it. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is circular pattern, and notice that there's 15 of them. So that we need 15 total of these supports. So circular pattern. And again, it's asking for the feature. The feature is that extrusion 2. So we click on it. Then it needs to know the axis we're going to rotate around. So we select the mouse icon there. And the axis again is hidden, but it's going to pick it up if I click on this inside edge. And there it is, that blue line, center axis. So we need 15 of those, so I'll change that. Looks good in the preview, so I hit OK. And we have ourselves fully supported ribbed wheel. Now, the last thing we have to do is put in, if you look really close, there's this little center groove right in the middle. So it's the last thing we'll add really quickly. We will do, starting a new 2D sketch, same thing, XY plane. And this time we're just going to, easy enough, we're going to project the geometry. We're going to project that inside ring again. And we're going to project just one of these edges here. And I'll tell you the reason here in a second. We're going to do a new circle from the center. We're going to recreate that circle we did last time. And virtually what we've created is this ring right here from inside of the wheel to the edge of that support rib. So and when I hit finish sketch, we can extrude, and you kind of zoom in and you can select that. Now clearly if we go to mid-plane extrusion, we want a much smaller size. We're actually going to go 0.01 and take a look when I hit OK what it did. It put that little groove right inside there. And that's the groove that they were trying to point out right here. It says use a shared sketch. Well, we never use the shared sketch, but to create the thin extrusion that runs around the inside center. So that was the last thing. Last thing we need to do is save the part, and that is tire with your initials in the 55A folder. So go ahead and save that, and we are done with this part.